Are you a runner? Or more importantly, do you want to become one? Do you want to know where to begin or how to get better? You've come to the right place. Welcome to Run Amazing Utah, where runners of Utah share their inspirational stories of how they conquered their battles, reached their goals, and overcame the seemingly impossible. If they can do it, so can you.
Is a running injury keeping you from living your best life? Are you looking to become a stronger, faster, safer runner? Let us help you reach your goals. At BodySmart, we empower people to make changes toward a fit and healthy lifestyle through running. Contact us at bodysmartutah.com or call us at 801-479-4471, located in Ogden, Utah. Hi, and welcome to Run Amazing Utah. I'm Melody, this is Dr. Cameron Garver, and with us today we have Jon and Mia. These guys are an awesome running couple. I met them, they came and helped me and Jacob with our 100-mile race a few months ago, and they were just awesome, and they saved us and told us a little bit about their running story, and they just are awesome humans, so we're really excited to have them here. So, how are you guys doing?
Good, I guess.
Good.
That's such a hype introduction. I think we're just all right. But no, thanks for having us. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah, totally. Well, to get going, let's just start with your running story. How did you guys both get into running, and then when did you start running together?
Well, Mia's been running longer than me, so I'll kind of let her kick it off.
It starts with me more than you. No offense.
No, it does.
So I come from a pretty heavy running family. Both my parents ran marathons when I was growing up. My stepmom runs marathons. It was just always something that was attainable for me just because I saw so many people do it. So I did track in high school, mostly just sprints. And then when I was 15 or so, then I wanted to run a half marathon before I graduated high school. So then my mom, who was super gung-ho, was like, well, let's just do one now. So we did a half marathon when I was about 14, 15. And then I thought it was too much because I didn't train for it. And I think I came in dead last. And then I decided that I wouldn't run any ever again. And then we met several years later when we were both in college, and he wanted to run a half marathon. There's a lot of debate over who wanted to. I know it wasn't me because I never wanted to run one ever again. But I was still keeping up with running, so he knew that I could kind of show him how to get into it.
I had wanted to get into running for a while, but the longest I'd ever run was 3 miles on a treadmill, and it was one of those things where I felt like a god because I could run 3 miles.
Right.
But then, we started training while we were still just dating. We fell in love, and then on the finish line of our first half marathon, I asked her to marry me. I figured if I could convince her when she's exhausted, tired, and just said, yeah, sure, whatever, can I get some bed and a water? So, yeah, that's how we got into it.
That's a smart way to do it. That's good.
So you just started running together, and then tell us your running story from when you first started running together. What do you guys do now? What kind of runs do you do? How often do you run?
So you mentioned earlier, we're a running couple, and I think we definitely identified that running is a huge part of our relationship. Running together is something we do more infrequently than not. It's interesting. We both train separately. The biggest difference, I would say, is just the way that we deal with stress mentally. I'm a pretty type A individual, and that when a challenge approaches, then it just excites me, and I just want to buckle down and mental toughness through it. And I think that shuts you down pretty fast most of the time.
I am a free-range hippie.
Nice.
If I don't want to do it, then I'm just like, what's my body telling me to do? I'm like, well, my body's not into it, so I don't think I'm going to. Obviously, I push through to an extent, but if I think, okay, will this potentially leave me injured? Maybe. I don't think I'm going to push that hard. Where Jon thinks, unless my ankles are broken and my knees fall off, I have not successfully ran this.
Are you more of a numbers guy, too? Do you track mileage and all the statistics?
Oh, yeah.
So you're more just by feel, and you're like, but my run says I have to get in 8 miles today, right? And so you're going to run 8 miles come hell or high water, right?
It means that I typically have a faster pace, and it also means that I feel like garbage, and I'm cranky, and I'm honestly a mean person. I'm not pleasant to run with.
Hungry all the time, right?
Yeah. And Mia genuinely enjoys what we do, and it's debatable.
Depends on the moment, right?
I love it when I cross the finish line and I achieved what I set out to achieve. If I don't, it's rough.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to do the metabolic test with you because I think we can help you dial that in a little bit where you'll still get that sense of satisfaction of like, okay, I'm following the program, but you may enjoy it a little bit more because you're able to tune into your body a little bit better. So that should be fun. I'm excited.
She's definitely helped too. I'm excited to do that as well. But she's definitely helped. It's one of those things where like opposites kind of find a better middle ground.
Oh yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Because there's been times where I've been on a run. I think to myself, Mia would probably stop right now, and then I'd think for a minute, like, oh yeah, my knee's exploding. I should probably sit down.
Yeah.
So
No,
it's a balance
good.
for sure.
Do you feel like it's gone like both ways? Like maybe you've learned to like push it a little bit more or be a little more type A?
Yeah, for sure. I would never say I have any percentage of type A in me. But I think that kind of like equal level of like pushing each other really comes out when we do trail runs together, which I definitely prefer doing trail over road.
Yeah.
I think you prefer road a little bit more.
Probably.
Just with trail where you don't necessarily have to always be concerned about hitting the pace every single time. And it's a little bit more lax and the community is a little more relaxed. Then that's usually where we kind of mix together. And that's where we do run together.
Mm-hmm.
So I help calm him down. It's like, okay, well, yeah, we still want to reach for this pace, but we can be a bit more relaxed. And he's saying, well, yeah, we're going to hurt regardless, but we still got to keep going.
Right.
So that's really where our
Yeah.
two strengths come into play, I think, is on trails.
I think so too.
Yeah, that's fun. So one of the things you mentioned, you train separately, but occasionally you'll run together. Have you noticed though that by both being involved in running, that you're better able to support one another in their individual training?
I would say 110% yes, both with running and every other life endeavor that comes with being married. It just builds a lot of empathy and understanding, I feel. Coming from a fairly emotionless guy, like it definitely has helped me be a little bit more caring and understanding, because when Mia outlines the struggles and exhaustions that come with training or a run that we did, not only can I relate to that, but it helps me be a lot more patient when other hardship and struggle happens in life. And you just grow together as you work through things together. Like Mia mentioned, we do our trail runs together, which is true. Every time we've done any kind of ultra or long trail run, we run it together. And it's always been something that has strengthened our relationship long-term down the road. Sometimes in the moment, it's tough and hard, but you go through it together. And I lift her up when she needs it, and she carries me when I need it, and it's a good time.
Well, that's little like microcosms of life, little like micro examples of life, right? One race may only be, a whole day. But
I will say we have not done 100 miles or anything like Melody here. So.
Some of those long races, that's amazing. Running for an entire day, but whatever. But you definitely go through that whole roller coaster of emotions that life takes you through. And it's interesting to see how you respond in those moments. Like probably does tell you a lot about your relationship and things like that, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Interesting. Fascinating. And the whole supporting each other better. I found that is a tough area for people when they're training, that when they feel like they're not being supported by a spouse or loved one, that makes it really hard for them to get to the gym regularly or run regularly or things like that. So having, a partnership where you can train together, that's huge. That's awesome.
Yeah, and we make it sound like we both just, hit the trails and we were in sync from day one, but it took a long time for us to get where we are now. There was a lot of trial and error, a lot of yelling at each other, and then while we were running, and then realizing, well, I can't leave this situation because we're running a marathon. I guess we just stay together and work this out. It's really helpful that way. We're just kind of forced to work out our problems while we're running together.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely taken a lot of trial and error to get where we are now.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But can you expound on that a little bit more? Do you have any specific stories where you it was a really hard run, but then you got better by the end and your relationship is stronger because of it?
What do you think?
I think the biggest one was probably Bryce.
I think so too.
Yeah, when we did our very first 50K in Bryce Canyon, and you did the 50 miler, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was our very first 50K, and that should not be a first 50K.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, it's so hilly, so up and down. We had no idea what to expect. We hadn't run that many half marathons, and we hadn't run that many trail events at all.
No, we walked into it fairly blind.
Yeah, exactly. And there were so many moments where we were just grudgingly just like trekking through, and we just felt so awful. And then somebody who had run the 100-miler would like sprint past us as we're like crawling up there. And I think there is this one point where I don't know what happened, but there was someone who was running the event who was pretty rude to the volunteers. And at the time, I think I was about 21, and he asked me how old I was, and I told him, and he thought I was 13. So I was really upset with this particular runner. And he had this like whole crew with him, and he was just being a little bit kind of rude to the fellow runners and volunteers. So then we saw him like running a few like, I don't know, kind of like, what's the word?
Just up a hill.
Yeah, just up a hill.
Like,
and
Yeah.
The switchbacks?
yeah, around the switchbacks. And we were so done. And John was behind me, and he was like dragging his arms, dragging his feet. And I'm just like, there's that guy, we gotta get him. And he's like, no, we don't. And then we just like full on sprint past
She full on sprint.
I was gonna say there is a little time there. A little competitiveness.
Yeah, a little bit. And then we just like run as fast as we can past him, and then we get to the aid station, and I look back, and he's like kind of slowing down, like getting his food, and I'm just like, hey, we gotta take our food, then we gotta go, we gotta beat this guy. And John's like, do we? Why do we have to?
Yeah. I would say overall though, with the Bryce 50K, I think that whole event was just a fantastic example of when both of us were at a really low point. Both of us at some point considered just like, do we just bail on this stupid thing? But not to the point that we were injured, just in pain. You know the difference, right?
Oh, yeah.
You're just sore and stiff and tired
Over
and
it.
hungry
Yeah.
and just pissy.
Right.
But yeah, eventually you just keep pushing forward. And I think that was a really, really good example of
Right.
when we came out of that. I mean, besides feeling all those things I mentioned, we also felt just tremendously triumphant.
Yeah.
And it made us feel that much more like, well, if we can get through that together, then like maybe we can get a dog. it was great.
Oh, is that when you got your dog? Was after that run?
No, but it was like a really
Oh.
good bonding moment.
Oh,
And
okay.
it led to like a lot more trust.
We
in our
realized we could
relationship.
raise a dog together.
Not yet to the human being.
We're
stage
still
yet.
not there
We're still
yet.
working on
That's fair.
Maybe after the 100 miler.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. That's fun to hear that story and kind of see how that helped you grow as a couple. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
So something that I think is super awesome about you guys is you said that, didn't you say you try to run a marathon every month? I mean, you guys are at a lot of races, right?
Yeah.
Kind of tell us more about like your race life.
So, and this definitely comes more from my like training style. This isn't because of any kind of, I read it in a book somewhere. This is completely in my head, so I might just be dumb. But I'm a very consistent person. Mia can attest to this. I'm a habits guy. My perfect day is an optimized day to achieve some abstract goal that I have.
So type A.
Just very structured and rigid.
That doesn't strike me as that's your
No,
way of doing things.
I fight and I break all kinds of barriers and walls, but at the same time, it's good for me because if I didn't have those set, okay, we paid for this event, we're running it, then I don't know if I would consistently put in the time to train or if I would work through that structure that I hate so much.
That's good.
What happened was we did our first half marathon.
Yeah.
We got engaged at the end of it. And so that next year was pretty tied up with just like wedding planning and figuring things out.
Mhm.
And so then when we got married, we ran our next half marathon, and it had been a year on the dot. It was the same event. And I wanted the habit to stick and be more consistent. And so after mapping it out, I was like, well, let's just do a half marathon a month minimum.
Mhm.
And the only way that I could commit myself to doing that was dropping the money and signing up for a half marathon every month.
Wow.
And then that expanded to a half marathon, and the next month we do a marathon, and the next month we do 2 half marathons, and eventually it turned into about a marathon a month, every month.
Wow.
And it means we spend way more money than most people do on signups. You certainly don't need to sign up for that many. You can just go run a marathon. We have very infrequently just run a marathon on our own.
We don't enjoy it.
No, I like the event of it. I think it's more fun.
Oh yeah.
But
The
in addition,
atmosphere is
just
cool.
again, when you drop the money, it's this economic
Right.
factor that like I paid for this, I need to go earn my money's worth,
Mhm.
and so it's just really made it a really consistent thing. And there have definitely been some months where very little training happens in between those runs just because life gets crazy.
Mhm.
But then that weekend rolls around, we're like, well, we're running a marathon today, hell or high water. And
Yeah.
you just
That's
go
funny.
run. Yeah.
How often would you say that you run the marathon versus race the marathon?
Depends.
Good
So
question.
I would say on trails, it's as everyone who's run trail, especially when you're first getting into it, running a trail marathon or an ultra is very much like you traverse the distance. Like if
Right.
it's uphill, you walk, crawl,
Right.
cry. When it's
More like a
downhill,
speed hike, right?
exactly.
Right.
Yeah. For road, I run them most of the time. Like every once in a while, I'll be on a rough road course that really kicks my trash, or I'll just be really sore and didn't train very well. But most road marathons I run the whole time. I'm not saying I'm like placing first in every one. I'm not
Well,
fast,
right.
but running.
Well, so is your goal to race it? Or is your goal like, hey, I'm just going to go out almost like another training run, but just a more fun atmosphere? Is that the way you approach most of them? Or are there certain ones that you're like, I'm going to race this one, like I'm going to shoot for a PR? Or are you shooting for a PR
Yeah,
every time?
I'm not shooting for a PR every time.
Okay,
That would
okay.
kill me. If I was shooting for a PR every month,
Right.
I think I'd die.
Right.
But
Oh,
and
agreed.
yeah,
Okay.
well, especially because there's some races where it's a lot easier to PR than on some other
Right,
races,
right.
right? Like, for example, we run the Salt Lake Marathon, which is a really, really great marathon. It's the half marathon we got engaged on, but it's not the most forgiving course compared to some of
Right.
the canyon marathons here in
They
the area.
just drop down.
Just
Yeah.
drop right down.
Huntsville, they just like,
They just literally, you
Right.
just like have fun. Gravity will help you out. And so on some of those ones, it's like, we walk into, there's this one that we do every year called Sun Marathon.
Mhm.
It's the beginning of February normally. I think it's in January this year. But that's one of my favorites. And that's always one that when I get onto it, I'm just like, we are here
let's go.
to haul ass and to kill this.
Lace it up. Yeah.
Mhm. But not every race. No.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that fair?
Yeah, I think I'm the same way. There are definitely events where I think, okay, I've done this before, or I've heard a lot of good things about this event. I'm confident with my training right now. I think I can really do it. But also, I mean, running a marathon a month isn't always the best idea because it's not always exactly 4 weeks apart. Sometimes it's 6 weeks, sometimes it's 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And
We've run
those-
back-to-back races before.
We have.
We have.
Yes.
And we're definitely not racing those.
Yeah, no, and that's
No.
totally fair. So that's one of the things I used to say quite a bit was like one of the biggest like frustrators of people trying to PR is racing too often, right? Like that's one of the biggest things that gets in people's way is racing too often if you're trying to improve, right? But if you take it as a training run and you're not trying to race every race, you're just running those races and then you only race a few of them, right? It's a little bit different because then you're just building a lot of high volume training, which I feel like is really important for a lot of reasons. But you can't take each one as like, I'm racing this. Like, I'm going to try and do my very best. Sometimes you just survive it and enjoy the experience, right?
Sometimes you just survive it.
Yeah.
I make it sound like I hate running. I really
No.
do like running. I just also have this mentality in my head that it's more important to finish than enjoy it, which does not work for everybody. Like, I don't even recommend that. That's
Right.
just how I'm wired.
Well, there's definitely a difference between I hurt everywhere and I hurt somewhere specifically,
Definitely.
right? Like hurting everywhere, push through it. Because
Just
it's just,
happens.
yeah, you're
It
just
just
tired and beat
happens.
up and that's fine. Push through that. Hurting somewhere specifically, that's more like, oh, you probably should back off and take it easy and see what, like, is there something wrong with that knee? Versus like, my feet both hurt, my knees both hurt, like, that's okay to push through that, right?
Yeah.
Nobody would ever finish marathon distance or greater if that wasn't the case, right? Ever.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So,
I hope you don't mind me bringing this up. If you don't, we can cut it out.
Oh, go ahead.
But so you guys said you attempted your first 50, right? And you said that you didn't finish it. And you mentioned that you have a hard time with not finishing. So I just tell us a little bit about that and just kind of what it was like and just the thought process.
Do you want to start us off?
Sure. So a year ago, we did the Dead Horse Ultra 50K, and we loved it, and we got a good time, and it was so much fun. And we said
Shout out to Mad Moose. You guys are awesome. Really good event.
yes,
Keep going.
we love the event. And we said we could do a 50 miler here. We want to do a 50 miler here. This sounds like the best place to do it. So then we had that in our minds, and then we started training for it in May. we are both also graduate students. He's in a part-time grad program while working full-time. I'm in a full-time grad program while teaching and tutoring part-time. So we have very full plates. So during the summer, we did pretty good with our training. We were hitting the miles. We were doing really good. And then school started, and it kind of started to get harder. And we fell behind a little bit. We were hitting the miles, but less consistently, and we weren't speed training specifically as much as we need to. I should say I wasn't speed training as much as I needed to. And then the event came up, and we're like, okay, our bodies can travel 50 miles. We know we can do it. And it wasn't until then that we looked at the time cutoff, and it was about 12 and a half hours if you count the staggering wavelength that they do now. So we think, okay, well, this is how fast we need to run. This is what we need to do. So we take off, and we're doing pretty good pace, but we didn't take aid stations into account. And it's just a lot more difficult with aid stations now because the volunteers aren't allowed to touch anything for you. So our fingers are frozen, and we're trying to unzip our packs and get everything out. So then we got set back a lot on aid stations, and then we were just trying to hit the times every time. And then I was pretty bad about rehydrating and keeping up on my nutrition. So then I was just like, okay, we just got to get through these 50 miles. And then we hit the 25-mile marker. And then John's like, okay, sit down. Let's think about this. Do we really want to go another 25 miles? I was pretty woozy. I was getting close to, if I hadn't sat down, I think I would have passed out or thrown up or something unpleasant.
All of the above.
All of the above, everything. And I was so like, let's just go, let's push through this. But he's just like, realistically, is this something we can actually do in the time constraints?
Safely, yeah.
At this point, we had arrived at the halfway point with 10 minutes to spare on the cutoff. And so I had to ask her, can we turn around and run that exact same distance and only lose 10 minutes? And realistically,
probably not.
No, we had never run that distance before, and given her current state, I just thought it would be better if we just called it a marathon then and just pulled the plug on it. And we did. And it was a hard decision, and neither of us liked it. I think we both went back to the Airbnb that we were staying at after the race feeling pretty crappy. Is that fair? Like, we felt not crappy physically, just terrible, all right? Because we'd trained for months. We'd wanted to do it for a year. It was a hard decision. But I think it was the right decision, not just because it was more realistic about where we were at physically, but secondly, because we didn't push ourselves, to your point, to a point where we would have either A, gotten physically hurt, or B, refused to accept the truth that we weren't there yet until they physically had to pull us off the course, which, they'll do if you're like missing cutoff times. And then we're just putting the workers like at risk of like trying to find us when we're like running out past dark. It would have just been impractical and unsafe. And I think you did a better job picking up than I did that, well, let's just treat this as a training run and roll over to whenever we want to try doing something like that again.
Yeah, I'm ready to get back in there. We're ready to keep going.
We're still discussing when we want to do another attempt at it.
But so that's an interesting idea. So everybody has like the A race, B race, C race. Have you heard that mentality of like A race is this is how I want it to go. B race is, if that doesn't quite go well. And C race is like, this is, well, I'll be happy with enough if everything else falls apart. I actually recommend that your A race is that I learn a lot from this. Like no matter how it goes, that I'll use this as a learning experience. B race is PR, everything goes perfect, awesome. C race is like, the PR didn't happen, but whatever. But I think every race we should take it from the perspective of like, I just want to learn and get better as a runner because this isn't my last race. Like if it was your last ever race, then like shooting for that PR or whatever, I get it. But like really, this race is just so that I can gain experience, mileage on my body, all those things so that I can run my next race even better. Right? That's kind of my mentality. And so that's the A race, is that whatever I'm going to learn from this is the key. And so I hope to learn something from it. B race is that everything goes perfectly, which it rarely does.
It's so true.
And so like that's the B race, is where everything goes perfectly. But that shouldn't be my expectation necessarily. That's the hope that that'll all work out. But Arace is like that I learned something from how this goes. Maybe I learned that the B race was attainable, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
But really A race. And so like in my opinion, you guys had an A race, even though it didn't quite go how you expected. You probably learned a lot about how you want to hydrate, nutrition, like all kinds of things. I know Melody in her 100 learned a lot about nutrition.
Nutrition gets you every time. Every time.
Right.
Yeah.
The spaghetti carbonara is probably not.
And brownies, yeah. Sugar's not the way to go.
I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about what it's going to look like to train in preparation for whenever that next attempt for a 50 miler might be. Which, as long as we're staying married, which is hopefully forever, right? Like, it's going to happen according to Mia. It's going to happen.
Right.
So we've talked a lot about it. And I definitely think, to your point, to be able to frame it both as a learning experience, but a learning experience that you then have an actionable plan to implement for the next one.
Oh,
'Cause
absolutely.
I think it's really easy to rub something off like, I learned from it.
Right.
And then,
what did you learn?
Yeah, exactly.
Quantify that for
And
me.
then you just go and run again, and the same mistake happen over
Right,
and over
right.
again.
Yeah.
Because we just crunched this, like we've done over 25 paid events over the course of our running career, counting half marathons, marathons and stuff.
That's awesome.
At least, if not more. And the number of times that it's gone perfectly, 2, 3, maybe, right?
That's awesome.
Is that fair?
Yeah.
Yeah, where it really went according to plan. Yeah.
Yeah, even
It's-
ones that we've PR'd don't necessarily go according to plan. Our current marathon PR pace is with this event that I won't say the name of it in case they're listening. Love you guys. It was not our favorite event. Like we didn't think it was necessarily our favorite course or anything. It was fast, but neither of us enjoyed it. We joked that the reason we were so fast was because we just wanted it to be over.
Love it.
So anywho.
That's funny.
Goodness.
So you guys have quite the medal and t-shirt collection then, I bet.
We do. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. So what would you guys say you did learn from not finishing that race? What are you going to do moving forward?
I think one of the biggest things is we learned how flexible we can actually be. During that whole race, we kind of swapped perspectives, essentially, because I went into it. I told him when we were starting, I said, if this is a race where it's like, I break my legs and I feel terrible after, then it's like, I will do that to finish. Like, I'm very willing to get injured for this event. And Jon heard me say that, and then halfway we were going when I'm like, wobbling, and he's just like, oh, she means it. So I was able to kind of take a little bit of Jon's perspective and say, like, I need to do this. Like, this, I made a goal, I need to finish it. And Jon was able to take my perspective and say, okay, well, what's a healthy limit to push?
Yeah.
So I think knowing that we both have these kind of mindsets and we can use them together now, instead of just like, I think this way, Jon thinks that way. And now we can empathize with each other a little bit more. So now going into our next event, hopefully we can find a healthy balance between the two when it's not just Jon feels this way, I feel this way, but we can kind of
I love
help
that.
each other.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
I'd echo that completely. I think she nailed it.
I
Nice.
think that's awesome. And this is I'm just curious, how was your nutrition? Like, what did you guys eat? What would you do different with your nutrition? Because I want to know.
So you laugh, but I think this is a valid point. So we're both vegetarian. So
Okay.
Mia is vegan, and I'm
Mhm.
pescatarian. So she's an extremist vegetarian. I'm a lazy one, really. That's what it comes down to. And so nutrition has always been something that's been important to us running because we don't eat like your average athlete, right? And something that we've had to talk a lot about is how do we, while maintaining what we feel is the best kind of eating habits for us personally, get the needed nutrients and carbs and like to be able to perform well. So I think it's a conversational point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mostly stick to like squeezable fruit packets.
Mhm.
I eat a lot of those.
During the run.
Yeah,
Just-
during the run.
Just like what you give like a toddler.
Exactly
the
like what you
applesauce
give, like,
packets
baby
and stuff.
food.
It was exactly baby food,
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I eat a lot of those. I'm just bad at nutrition in general because with
hard.
a marathon, then I'm comfortable saying like, okay, well, I'll eat what I need to and then push through
Right.
the rest.
Yeah, you
And-
don't necessarily need a lot for that length of event. Yeah.
During
Exactly.
the event.
Yeah, and
true,
then
yeah.
with 50Ks, then I'm comfortable saying, okay, well, I can take a little bit at the aid station and then walk a little bit while I'm eating. But while we are trying to run and eat, that's not something that I'm necessarily comfortable with as a runner yet. So I was trying to like wharf down like a PB&J while still running, and I was not good at it.
Yeah. That's hard.
I would say for me, I just do a lot of Cliff Bars, honestly. Like it's just like inserting carbs into your body. Okay. I don't know why, but like salty, cheesy snacks. Well, the salt makes sense, but the cheese, I guess, the preference thing. So like I eat Cheez-Its and Goldfish like crazy when I'm on water trail. I just really get peckish for them. I don't think that's like good per se. The salt's good.
Sure.
But like in addition to that, I just a lot of protein bars. Neither of us like the goos at all. They just don't sit well with either of us.
Yeah.
I don't do a lot of caffeinated stuff. I know like that's a big thing for some runners is like a really high like caffeine intake. We don't really do any like I can think of other than if there might be some in like a chocolate like protein bar or something. But like we're not pounding Red Bull or anything. No.
Yeah, no. I know one runner that he mixes Martin, so kind of a starch-based drink that. Anyway, with a Red Bull, and that's his like.
Gotta die.
Oh my gosh.
Sounds like
if it works for him though, because I'm a Goldfish.
Well, he's really fast, so I mean, it's not working too poorly for him, but it's kind of funny what people figure out works for them, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
I will tell you though, caffeine. I was totally against caffeine until like the last like 30 miles over 100, and someone gave me some caffeine, and I was like, I'm gonna take anything right now, and I took it, and I was like a whole new person, and now
that's cool.
Caffeine's amazing. But,
She's sold.
Right.
She's sold.
I think it works better on her too because she doesn't use it very often, right? Like she doesn't take it like daily or even monthly, right?
Yeah, no.
Then when she has it, it's like it really does work. Whereas like I'm kind of a Dr. Pepper junkie. It doesn't have as big of an effect. Like I can't feel the effect very much at all.
That makes sense.
So yeah, I think you're probably better off. Using it sparingly because then it'll actually work. So
right. But so there's no like, okay, I'm gonna eat like this many calories every hour, or like looking at your heart rate, and it just is kind of listening to your body.
It's one of those things where I'll say, okay, I know I have to intake this many calories, but then at the same time, my primary goal is just to keep going.
Right.
And then when you're running and you're not thinking very critically, then I just think like, okay, maybe this will help me run faster if I eat food. But I don't know anything right now because I'm running.
Right. So I think there's another area we can really help out with the metabolic testing is we can give you that exact like this is your calorie replacement rate at this level, like at this many beats per minute of your heart rate average, you should be eating this many calories back. And so super helpful in that way.
Yeah.
You definitely need help there.
It's just another thing that makes ultra running harder. It's like there's already so many things to think about when you're running, and then and now you have to throw nutrition in on top of that. It just makes things way harder. But
for sure.
Anyways, it's just trial and error. I feel like even elite athletes are still trying to figure out like what is proper nutrition for them.
They're always dialing stuff like that in because even a 1% change, 1% over 26 miles. Like, that's a big deal, right?
Yeah.
When you add 1% over that many miles, that much distance and time, like, winds up being a big amount.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah.
When races are won in seconds and, like, minutes, 1% makes a big, big difference.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. So I have just a few more questions for you guys. You told me this awesome story about how one race in particular did not go as planned. How about you tell that story? I think it's awesome.
Do you want me to take a stab at this one?
Yeah, go for it.
I'm wearing the shirt for it actually. So we went up to Oregon. It was in Bend, and there was this 50K that we wanted to run. It was up in the mountains there, and the night before it was a little chilly. For those of you that haven't been to Oregon very much, the weather can be a little sporadic and it's very wet. So the difference between a slightly rainy day and a blizzard is just a couple degrees. And when you're higher up in the elevation, it's an even smaller margin. So we get up to go run this 50K. And in the morning, right before we all get started, the race director is talking to everybody. And he says, well, there's a little bit of rain. There's no snow right now. We don't think we're going to get very, very much, but there's a little bit. So we're running up into the mountains a little bit. And then we get to an aid station. We stop. And then the snow just hits like crazy. Within 5 minutes, it's well past our ankles, maybe all the way up, like halfway up our calves, just in snow. Just coated up there.
And you said that you're like in
wet, heavy snow. And we're in running gear. Like I think we had like pullovers and hoodies and stuff, but we certainly didn't have rain and snow gear as much as we should have. And that's something we could have prepared for better. But it was very, very cold, very, very wet. So there was a lot of miscommunication on the trail as well, because a lot of people dropped the event. And there was a lot of miscommunication on who dropped and who didn't, because a lot of people weren't communicating with the race organizers. Because of the weather change, they were just bailing. And so they weren't exactly sure who all was left still on the trail and not. So there was at one point where we ran up to where an aid station was supposed to have been, and they had already closed up, packed it up, and left. So we ran 14 miles of this thing unsupported in a blizzard, just hoping that there was someone still out there trying to get cell service for the race director in the middle of the mountains in a blizzard. It was a very unfun experience. So we finally got a hold of the race director, and we're like, hey, we're like most people at this point. We've been unsupported. There's a blizzard. We're freezing cold. We'd like to drop, just to be super transparent. And he was like, oh, yeah, that sucks. Can you get to the next aid station? And so we just had to keep going a little bit more until we could finally get to the aid station. By the time we got there, they were all packed up. We just jumped in his pickup and we were dropped back off.
Wow.
It was a real rough learning experience that really taught us a lot about factors that are outside of your control that you can like justify. Because I think that too many people feel guilty when they drop or cancel an event. Right. And I think that was one where, sure, we could have brought a little bit better snow gear, but we couldn't have prepared for them closing up the aid stations on us. We like, hopefully that's not something you're banking on. In my head, they say it's going to be there, it's going to be there.
Right.
So.
Well, in addition to the weather, so like most ultras, they lined the track with little pink ribbons.
Oh, yeah.
And before, we're all lined up, ready to go at the starting line. The race director comes out. He says, by the way, some kids came by and tore down a bunch of the trail markers. So you really have to keep your eye out. So, and when we're going in the snow, then everyone's tracks get covered immediately.
It was so much snow.
So we have no idea if we're going in the right direction. And then we would like trudge along in the snow for a little bit longer, and then we'd see a pink marker blowing in the breeze. Like, that's it, we're doing okay.
It was such a rough time, man.
Right. So you see in Idaho, state of Idaho, like, just crashing out, like, oh, how did we get here? Oh, man, that's crazy.
It was a rough event.
That's hilarious. But now it's a fun story. I think that's one of the coolest things about running is all these awesome stories you get from it.
And just collect adventures, right?
Yeah.
And some are like the obvious type. We pushed through, it was hard. And sometimes they're just fun. Like, just a side story. There was another event that we did in Colorado. We went to go to the event. It was in Colorado Springs. Neither of us had ever been there. It was a trail ultra. And in our heads, when you go to a trail ultra, it's out in the middle of nowhere. You set up a camp and you go. But it was in Colorado Springs. Like, it didn't make sense to us.
Like the trail system through the town.
Yeah, well, like, it starts, like, at a thing, and then you ran up a mountain and came right back down. I didn't realize that Colorado Springs was built, like, around a mountain, which it is. Yeah. People from Colorado are like, idiot, look at a map. But anyway, so we showed up thinking we were just going to be able to camp, and there wasn't one, so we were trying to scramble to find an Airbnb, and we found this, what was it called?
Lace and Spurs.
Lace and Spurs. For some reason you're listening, old lady that runs Lace and Spurs, you're awesome. It's this like small little Airbnb that like didn't have Wi-Fi, didn't have a TV, and the whole time she was just like, when Colorado Springs was founded in insert year. I was like, were you there? Like, you know? So she's trying to be all sweet. And when she says a bed and breakfast, she meant it quite literally. She was like, yeah, everyone who stays comes up and eats breakfast together. She had like an old table, like 3-course little China set. And we're like, well, we have a trail run at like 5 in the morning the next day, so we're going to have to miss. And she was like, okay. Like, she was so visibly sad.
It's so crestfallen.
Yeah, so like weird stories like that, like, are not typical running story, but there's no way we would have bumped into that. But
Lace and
Spurs.
That you'll never forget. Lace and Spurs.
So
that's
fun.
pretty fun.
It was wild. Anyway.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Derail.
No,
you're good.
That's great.
I love all the stories.
Perfect.
The more stories, the better. So I have 2 questions for both of you. What would be your like number 1 advice for a runner? And then how has running changed your life?
Do you want to start? Or do you want me to start?
I've got to bow out. So I'm gonna take off.
No worries.
But thank you so much. It was excellent meeting you, and I'll let you guys wrap it up.
Okay, cool.
Such a pleasure.
Awesome.
Thanks so
Thank you.
much for having us.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. For a runner, I'll look at the camera, I guess, for this one if you're watching. For a runner, it doesn't matter how experienced or not experienced you are. I think that progress is progress. This might sound generic, but I think that as long as your understanding of like where you're at and where you can be, that's far more important than the needless comparing. I know for a fact that I'm never going to be, and this might sound defeatist, but I'm never going to be a world record marathon holder. I don't have the body type for it. It's not within reach. But what that doesn't mean is that I can't improve from where I am. And I think that if you're comparing yourself truly just against yourself, that's far more important. And I think that that kind of correlates a little bit to your other question about how has running changed my life. I think the biggest thing has definitely been it's helped with the relationship that I have with my wife. I think Mia and I have grown a ton through it. I've definitely feel like we've been able to work together better on all fronts because of the struggles that we worked through with training, with running events, and the fun experiences that have tied us together with that since from day one. But in addition to that, I think it's just made me a little bit more understanding of where people can be versus where we might abstractly put them. Because people have this terrible tendency of saying, you're only good enough until X. And that could be with a career, it could be with a marriage, it could be with raising children, it could be anything. Definitely with running. But I don't think that that has any merit besides that that's just where that one individual has abstractly decided success is. I think all that does is create bad expectations because it puffs people up that are above that to a point of being unhealthy, and it tears people down that are below that needlessly because there's 1,000 factors that go into it. Like you mentioned, nutrition is something that affects it, body type affects it, your mentality, your strengths and weaknesses. I just think it's abstract and just causes a lot of more hurt than help personally.
Yeah.
So I guess that's what I would say.
No, that's awesome. I love that.
I honestly think mine would be very similar. One thing that I always think is just because the odds aren't necessarily in your favor doesn't mean that something's unattainable. I think that most people, if they have the desire to run, walk, jog a certain distance, then most likely, or not everyone obviously, but certain barriers don't always equate to total limitations. It can be that there are challenges and obstructions, but it doesn't mean that something's impossible. I'm someone, I have really bad knees and feet, and I have a respiratory disease. And it just means that my standards have to adjust, not go down or compare to other people, but it just means that my standards are more specific for me. And I think that that's one thing, especially new runners going into it, have to realize what their personal standards are and what they view as a success or improvement or overcoming a challenge.
I love that. I love that you said that about having to change change how you train or what you do, like based off of like your personal needs and limitations and such, right? Because I feel like something that I tell everyone is you can do anything you set your mind to. Nothing's impossible. And then people always like throw something at me like, well, I can't run a marathon if I don't have any legs. But then you just do it differently. You get prosthetic legs, right? Or you run a marathon in a wheelchair. Like, you can do anything you set your mind to, even if that means you have to do it a little bit differently than someone else. So I love that you brought that up. So is there anything else that you guys want to add or mention?
If you're thinking about running, sign up. Do it. Like, that's seriously it. Like, the reason when we first signed up for a half marathon, it was not because I was not prepared or anything, because I wasn't. I certainly didn't train. Mia helped a ton, tremendously, but I didn't walk into that half marathon as a competent, well-trained, half marathoner at all. I walked away from that and I hurt my knee, needlessly, just very avoidable. It was, I don't know. But if you don't just sign up and do it, then that's it. You don't sign up and do it. The story's over. Yeah, it's just like anything else, right? If you wait for the perfect moment, it's never going to happen. So just dive in. That's pretty much it.
I love it. And now here you are running a marathon every month. So that's super awesome.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys for coming in. It was awesome to get to know you better. And you had lots of awesome insights and lots of awesome advice. So our listeners are really lucky to hear what you guys have to say. So again, thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to Run Amazing Utah. Remember, if they can do it, you can do it too. If you have an inspirational running story or know someone who does, we would love to feature you too. Contact us through our Instagram or Facebook, Run Amazing Utah.